Hi, this is Shannon Port, and I welcome you to the Art of the Feminine podcast. Today we are doing a live stream podcast, and the date that it's taking place live is December 10th, 2016. And so I welcome you to this podcast, this video. And today we will be talking about the full moon in Gemini. And I posted it as December 14th, but it actually, in my time zone, comes on December 13th. I'm on the East Coast time, and so I believe it comes at about 7:05 p.m. here on the East Coast. So it will indeed be the 14th for some people, but it's the 13th and the 14th of this coming week. And so it's the holiday season, and so I want to wish everybody a really, really warm and peaceful and joyful holiday season this month. We have so much to be thankful for on so many different levels, even though there's so many things happening in the world that we are all very aware of, many changes taking place and some chaos taking place. We still have so much to be thankful for, and this time of year is a really, really special time of year. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. We're coming upon the solstice season, the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, and summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. And so, and that is a season of magic. It is truly, truly a season of magic. And so I want to say we're going to continue along some of the things we talked about in the last podcast. I want to say that I posted a link in the description box in this video. I'm just getting familiar with all of these ways to communicate, but I mentioned in the last podcast that I had was planning to do a newsletter called Spiritual Protection in the Auric Field. And I didn't end up getting it out as soon as I thought I would, but it's up and it's out now. And so I put a link to that newsletter because it talks about some of the really important things that we're going to touch upon in this video today. And so below in the description box, there's a little link that will take you to that if you're interested. It just talks about really coming into a sovereign space in our heart, in our mind, in our ways of discerning the world, in our energy, in the way that we take the proper space in order to make sense and really use our deepest wisdom to understand what's going on in the world. Because as we will talk about today in this video, there are a lot of different voices pulling us in different directions at this time. And so there's information everywhere, and we're seeing a battle of different sources of information. And so what that really touches on is that in order to discern what is right for each one of us, we have to be able to access our own inner voice, and then be able to hear through our inner hearing and the true vision of the soul in order to come to the understanding that really makes sense to us. And so, all right, so I posted that in the link below. And then also in January 2017, I start another 3-month round of mentoring. And I mentioned that I did that before, but every season I work with many individuals and couples, and I go through a 3-month process for those of you who are interested in this wisdom and in the divine feminine wisdom, the divine masculine wisdom, and the wisdom of the archetypes and some of the esoteric teachings. I work with people, and I, most importantly, give them tools to apply it to their life and to just go deeper into the kinds of things that we're talking about in this video. And so I put a link to that if you're interested in that work and you want to find out more about it. All right, so we've got the holidays, we've got the season of alchemy. The colors of the holidays are red and white, and if anyone who's familiar with alchemy and with spiritual alchemy knows that red and white are the colors of alchemy. And so it's no coincidence that this season of the inner light and the inner sun are represented by the colors of alchemy. There's so much that that is related to this Gemini full moon. This is such a potent moon we have. Okay, so I just want to, if you're new to this podcast, we are meeting, the Art of the Feminine podcast used to be a call. It used to be primarily on iTunes, and then I would eventually get it over to YouTube. Now we're doing 2 videos a month. We're looking at the moon cycles. We are meeting for the full moon and the new moon just to talk about. I wanted to state the purpose and the intention of this podcast is to, first of all, have a way to communicate with each other. There are many voices in the world, and it's important that that we join conversations that move our heart and that are important to us. And so that is my biggest purpose in speaking and having the creative act of interacting with you in this way is to open hearts and stimulate minds and hopefully touch you in any way that might move you to be closer to your own truth and to feel inspired to begin to act on that truth in the world. Because if everybody was acting on the love that they feel, because primarily human beings are good and we are created by love and we are love. And so the more people that are really, really feeling inspired to act on the love in their heart, we will see our planet begin to change so quickly. And now is the time for that. It's building and it's beginning to happen. So the full moon is potent. The full moon is potent. The next new moon is potent. We're moving into a new year, 2017. And 2017 has a really powerful energy for revelation and for awakening. And I'm going to be doing I'll do a video specifically about the archetype of 2017 and why it is truly, truly going to be a time of the veil being lifted, of us seeing what's been buried in the dark, but also having the revelation of the heart and being able to create, if we're in alignment with goodness and with truth, whatever that means to us, and if we're in alignment with waking up and becoming the greatest beings that we can be, and even as far as serving on this planet and helping others and allowing us to become what we're truly, the true potential that we have, there is so much energy for this in 2017. This is a year where many of us are going to get to see what's really in our heart come into manifestation. So that being said, I think we'll look at this season being the season of the beginning of the mysteries. So the path of the sun, we look at, when we're looking at alchemy and we're looking at the mysteries, we look at where the sun is in the northern hemisphere, because the north is it's the ascending direction. And so right now in the northern hemisphere, the sun we're entering into the season of winter solstice and the season of the holidays. There's many different holidays for many different traditions. We are getting ready we started with Thanksgiving, but now we're entering into the season where in the north, the sun is far away from us right now. So it's cold and it's dark. It's darker than usual. It represents a time when our inner sun and our inner Christic flame is birthed into a new cycle. And so it's such a special time. And it happens not only in the physical plane, but it happens on other levels of existence, on other, we could say on another dimensional frequency of consciousness, but this time of year is also highly, highly auspicious and celebrated. So it's not just about shopping and gifts and eating, although all of the mysteries are coded in the things that we do. Even in the music that we hear this time of year, lately I've become aware that so many of the mysteries are actually in the words. They're like mantras playing in some of the holiday music. And so sometimes we think it's Hallmark, it's fabricated, it's been put out there to create materialism, but this is a time of the heart. It's a time of allowing the feminine to be felt. When we talk about holidays, and when we talk about birth, and when we talk about gathering around to celebrate, when we talk about singing, and we talk about music, and we talk about even gift giving a gift, because the true meaning of giving a gift is to give of the heart. We're talking about honoring the feminine part of all of us. Our feminine part of our being is about music. It's about sitting around the fire. It's about family. It's about giving to one another. It's about the tree. It's about the lights. It's about all of these things that warm our heart. And so if you have the opportunity to go into that space where you really see the true meaning of Christmas and all of the other holidays that surround this time, and the new year, the solstice, know that there is magic in these things that is meant to open the heart and birth the light within us. And that's why we talk about, in the Christian tradition, it's the birth of the Christ in the manger, and that the birth of the Christ is the birth of the sun. It's the Christ is the archetype of the light being birthed in our planet, and the archetype of the light coming into the darkness to light up the darkness and to show us how to find our own way in our own being, how to find the inner light and the path of alchemy, which is what we're going to talk more about. It is truly the sun that leads us into the light, and so we celebrate the birth of the sun this time of year. All right, so just going to see if there's any other little things before we break into the moon. All right. Okay, so we were looking at Sagittarius, at the Sagittarius new moon, and we talked a lot about truth and justice. And by the way, that I know what I've been meaning to say. The theme of this call, the actual title that came in was Positive Mental Focus and the Power, the Creative Power of the Mind. Because alchemy is about the mind, and it's about Mercury, and Mercury rules Gemini. And so I also wanted to say that in this podcast, what we do, we look at what's going on in the world, and then I gather information from the wisdom that I work with, the divine feminine wisdom, and which includes many, many different things. And we look through the eyes of the archetypes to see what is the message that's coming through. What is it? What is one of the creative messages that we can download through this, through what's happening in astrology, through what's happening on the planet, and how can we birth a message that might have some potency in our lives? And so that's what we're doing. We're looking at these archetypes that we're going to go further into, and we're decoding them, and we're letting them speak to us, because that's what they do. They, in my work, I work a lot with the 22 divine archetypes of the major arcana, and they are profound. They are books of wisdom, and when we have a relationship with them, they begin to open and awaken within us and talk to us, because they represent the divine archetypal plane. They represent the first thoughts of Source, as Source began to bring the soul through and into matter. The thoughts of creation, and they correspond to a very powerful alphabet. They correspond to everything. They correspond to the planets. They correspond to numbers. They correspond to music, to colors, to so many different things. So what we do is we look at those, and we We listen to the message of how they're interacting with each other at the auspicious times of the full moon and the new moon, and we look at what is being communicated. So the full moon, as I was looking this over, it's really a time of alchemy, because in the full moon we have the sun opposite the moon. So we have the sun at 22 degrees Sagittarius at this Gemini full moon, and we have the moon at 22 degrees Gemini. Okay, so this is the feminine and masculine, and they both contain the masculine and feminine within them, but we have the representations, which are silver and gold, also the colors of this season. Silver and gold are also the colors of alchemy, because it's the moon and the sun. We have these two great forces in polarity with each other. And that means that when two things are opposite each other, they're birthing. They are birthing something between the two. When you think about it, sexual union, it's two opposites shining energy towards each other to birth something, whether it's a child or whether we're birthing things constantly by the kinds of alchemy and the kinds of union that we take place in. So the sign of Gemini in the archetypes is the Lovers, which is very powerful. And we're going to go back and look at some of the things we talked about in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is alchemy, and it's alchemy, it's temperance in the archetypes, and Gemini is the Lovers. The Lovers represents the union of opposite poles, the union of opposite forces. Both of these signs are highly, highly alchemical signs. And so seeing what's going on in them is going to make even so much more sense why this is so potent, why this is such a beautiful time. We have, so the Lovers, which is Gemini, we've got the moon in the Lovers, the moon, and she's holding space in Gemini. She's trining Jupiter and trining Mars also. So we've got Jupiter and Mars in there working with the moon, which is so powerful. And she's also opposite Saturn, because Saturn is very close to the sun. Saturn will be at 19 degrees. 19 degrees is 19 is the sun. So Saturn is at the degree of the sun. The sun is at 22 degrees, but they're very close together. They're working together to create this alchemy. And this is all about what's happening within us, as well as whatever's happening within us is always also happening in the world before us. Okay. So we have the union of opposites in the Lovers. We also have, the Lovers is the number 6, which shows Venus is involved. So Venus, the color green, is also very involved at Christmas. We have red and green. Red is Mars and green is Venus. So Christmas, we can see already this time of year is that's about the birth of the sun, is about alchemy, and it's the symbolism is all around us. Now, when we're talking about this, we're talking about the positive. We're talking about healing the split within our own individual selves, between our thinking mind and our feeling mind, between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind, between our right brain and our left brain. We're talking about building the bridge so that they can work together. When we become unified, which is what alchemy is, we become one within. What is two becomes one. Once we become one within ourselves, we become unity. We become a force in this world. When there's no longer that split between what is hidden and our intellectual mind, what we're projecting out into the world, when they unify, there's great potential to transcend the limits that we have in our world. So we live in a world of form, and we live in a world of high density, and it's very high density. There are many blocks put in place to prevent actually the true awakening of the divine human, but we all have access to this when we look inward and when we understand what it is to unify ourselves. I talked a little bit about that in that newsletter, spiritual protection in the auric field, because our auric field, our aura, the body of light around us, which is the beginning of the higher bodies of light, but it's the emanation of our thoughts and our feelings, which are also represented in the lovers. The thoughts are of the intellect, the feelings are of the heart and the subconscious mind. When we understand how to unify those things within us, our aura becomes so powerful that it can't be penetrated. It's no longer, some of the darker energies and the attack energies can no longer penetrate it. There's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still things that we have to be very vigilant about and hold great discernment about, but we get so much more. We boost our radiance and we boost our light, and so we're able to do things with more intention and with more intuition, with both intention and intuition. It makes life more creative and fulfilling because we're acting from our own inner truth rather than being programmed by the mass communication that's happening on the outside. And so we'll go back a little bit. So Sagittarius is truth. And so we're talking about Sagittarius, if you're kind of new to this work, because the full moon is in Gemini, but it's opposite the sun in Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius and Gemini work together on an axis. We've now are saying that they both are about alchemy. Sagittarius representing the union of opposites, but also representing the alchemical container and of truth, which is shared by knowledge, information, the divine wisdom. All of that is Sagittarius. And it's a very important link to understand that information is power, because the information of who we truly are is our power. And that's Sagittarius. Sagittarius is about the high level information. It's about what our truth is, what our power is, what our vision is. And it represents alchemy, because it's temperance, and it is alchemy in the archetypes. So we're looking at, the reason I wanted to touch upon the creative power in the mind and positive mental focus is because we are in a time when we're having to discern. So we're going to look at now what's going on in the world, on our planet right now, and we want to look at it from a positive place. It's really important. Sometimes we need our time to kind of like to get depressed and to get down and be like, oh my God, I can't believe what's going on in the world. But the high power, and then we process, and then we hopefully come to a new place where we wake up again stronger and more inspired and more determined than before, to move through this, to become stronger. Where there are challenges, we don't want to pray for the challenges to lift. We want to pray to get stronger so that we can move through them and gain the power and the wisdom that we're meant to gain by traveling through these initiations. And Sagittarius is also, it's initiations. So in Gemini, we have the mind. And we have communication. It's Mercury. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury rules alchemy because it's the power of the mind and all the things and correspondences that go along with Mercury that give us the power to do what we need to do. We have to have a strong mind. We have to have a focused mind. We have to have positive focus in order to move through. We have to know how to be positive. In this world, when we're only receptive, and when we're only in the feminine, we become too open to what is being fed to us. So in order to have strength, we also have to be able to radiate and to project into the world. We have to learn how to project our own. I believe now, I remember now, there was a paragraph that came in that newsletter. We have to be able to project into the world in order to really play a conscious part in it. If we're only receiving what's being given, then we're at the mercy of whoever's out there. They say if you don't run your own subconscious mind, somebody else will run it for you. That's what we call mind control. That's what we call, becoming enslaved and becoming like robots and becoming desensitized, anesthetized, all of these things to to what's happening and to understanding that we're part of a family. This is a human family that we're part of, and we're not meant to be desensitized to that. We're not meant to be so anesthetized that we can't feel. We don't want to be overwhelmed by everything so badly that we feel despair and like we can't act, but we want to use the energy of that polar opposite. So say we want to bring forth truth. When we see something that is not truth, polarize with it. Shine it in the face, shine light in the face, and you'll meet somewhere in the middle and create something new. And that is the creative power of the mind. All right. Okay, so right now at this full moon, we'll talk about some of the planets. So Saturn is conjunct the sun, close to it. Saturn's at 19. The sun, I like to talk about the degrees because they give us another level of information, more correspondence. The sun is at 22 degrees. The sun is also trining Uranus, and so is Saturn. 22 is the number of the Fool, which is Uranus, and it's the number of the great limitless power that's behind all of this. This whole picture show, there is a light and a power that has given life to all of it. And the Fool represents that. It represents the energy of pure power and creation. And so the sun and the moon, they're both at 22 degrees. The moon in Gemini and the sun in Sagittarius, both of these alchemical signs hugely are both trining, or I'm sorry, the moon is sextiling Uranus. The sun is they're both making contact with Uranus. The moon is in a sextile, I believe, yes, and the sun is trining along with Saturn. Saturn is Saturn gets a bad rap because Saturn does indeed bring upon great challenges. It slows us down. It brings hardship. It brings us face to face with our karma. It makes us clear out what has not been serving us, and it does it in a way that's oftentimes grueling and painful. But Saturn is also and this was really showing up as I was kind of doing a little writing a couple days ago. Saturn is the fruit. And even in alchemy, Saturn is the root and the fruit and the goddess. It's what we get through our original seed, our actions. Saturn becomes the fruit. And so Saturn is going to show us what's real. It's going to show us what made it to form because it contracts. On the tree of life, it's the planet of the Divine Mother. It's the Sephiroth, it's a Sephiroth of Bina, and that's her planet. And so it represents the mother's ability to contract. And that's why it's represented, also we hear about some of those goddesses like Kali or some of the angrier goddesses that work with fire and work with contraction, because in order to birth anything, there has to be a contraction. And so sometimes we interpret those ideas as the goddess being angry and having rage, but it's a little bit more, the wisdom goes even deeper than that. It goes deeper than that because as humans, we do want to mirror with an archetype that will show us that it's okay to be angry and okay to use our firepower and okay to get mad and have that move us into action, but we don't want to get stuck there. Because getting stuck there, the truth is that hatred and anger in that level are only of this density. We actually have to, it's what holds, there's a very particular frequency that holds the earth, this level of our earth consciousness together, and anger and hatred can only really exist the way we understand them in this density. We have to be able to alchemize them and use them in a way and transmute them because they're part of our earth energy that needs to be transmuted in order to do the alchemy. And so Saturn and the sun together are showing that and they're both in Sagittarius. They're both in this this sign that's really about, it's about the great adventure of the Fool, the great adventure of the spirit into matter, because this is really an adventure. When all is said and done, our life and our being brought into this world is a great adventure, and we can see it like that, or we can see it as something awful. It helps to see it as an adventure, because then regardless of what is given before us, we know we have to be the hero and act in our own drama. We have to play a key role. If we're not playing a key role in our own drama, we'll miss out. When we're meant to be the hero or the heroine, and that's for sure. And that's Sagittarius, saying be adventurous, have a future vision, don't get stuck in the story that's being told to us. So I jotted down so many different papers. They come so quick that I have to kind of look for different things. Yes, information. All right. Discernment. The Lovers, even in this archetype, tells us we have to have discernment. Whatever we think, whoever we listen to, we begin to merge with. That's alchemy. That's intercourse. We're constantly in a relationship with something outside ourselves as well as something in ourselves. And so we have to discern our relationships. We have to know what we're leaping into. The wiser we get, the more we begin to feel from our intuition and see what is called the fruit in the seed. Before we even make the seed act, we understand what kind of fruit will come from that seed. Is that a seed I want to plant, or is that and that's called vision. And that's what Sagittarius is about, that we have to be able to know when we act, and the wiser we get, we can see into the future and know what will come about by the actions we take, by the people we merge with. The Lovers is about sexual union. It's huge. So is temperance and alchemy. We have to know who we're merging with. Physically, and that's why so much of the work we do at Art of the Feminine, and I've mentioned it, a whole year is about sexual, the new human sexual paradigm, and understanding what happened to us, truly what happened, how we took something so beautiful and so profound and just desecrated it and turned it into so many different things. It's all part of the drama. It's part of the journey we're on. But now we're in the return to the higher. We're in the return to knowledge and the return to wisdom. We went as far away from wisdom as we could to gather information. Now we're headed back towards wisdom. So it's time to gather up all our pieces of ourself and all of the things, the seeds we planted, gather our fruits, determine which ones are going with and which one are not. That's Saturn, and turn the ones that don't work back into compost. Let them go back to the earth and stay in this dimension while we rise up. All right, so Gemini is Mercury, and one of the big messages right now is the creative power of the mind, positive mental focus, and understanding how one of the biggest things happening in the world right now is a battle over the truth. Who has the truth? We're seeing very different voices come forward about very, very, very important things on our planet. I'm not going to go too deep into some of those things right now, because I encourage you to just place this in your own life where it fits for you and take a look. But we're seeing things also many of the things that have been hidden that we've been talking about forever are coming into the light. They're just being purged out. They have to be seen, because so many people haven't accessed intuition and real discernment yet to understand, to look beyond what they're told. We are trained from birth to listen to what we're told, and there's for a good reason. When we're growing up, there's times where we need to listen to our mentors and our elders, but we become very obedient. And so without realizing it, a lot of people go on autopilot, and they just go on autopilot. They pick up the newspaper, they listen to the mainstream media, and hey, that's, call it a day. I know what's going on here. I know what's going on here. Looks like we're okay here. And that's enough. And so what's happened is that the voices coming through are so conflicted and so there's different things happening. They're not necessarily in service. They're not necessarily like what happened to the days when we understood that when we're in a position to serve and when we're in position to be communicators of great information, that's a high responsibility. And it's been so abused, and it's been bought off, and it's been manipulated. However, there is truth. Wherever we see untruth, truth is right there with it. So sometimes we see truth coming through, and sometimes we see, at this level that we're at now, sometimes we see great lies coming through. And so it's beginning to all unravel. This is what's happening at this time of the full moon. Full moon is culmination. So as I was tuning into this, I was seeing that this is really the culmination of the Gemini quality of the mind in its Mercury. And remember, it represents information. It represents communication. And Sagittarius across from it, higher truth, wisdom, philosophy, the truth that serves the greater good, the real truth, the higher truth. It's ruled by Jupiter, and it's about the truth that will set us free. The truth represented in Sagittarius is the instruction of the gnosis of the heart. It's the truth that will set us free and liberate us into greater understandings of ourself, and greater potentials and expressions, creative expressions of ourself. So right now there's a dismantling. Things are just, if you're watching YouTube and you're watching this video, you're probably aware, because there's so many alternative voices now, and they're really getting out. And there's a battle between what is the traditional mainstream, what is the alternative, some calling themselves part of a truth movement, but then there's everything else. Now it's not just the battle of mainstream and truth, it's the battle of everybody now wanting to take part in the conversation, because people are popping up everywhere now, putting their own version of what they see is happening right now. And there's an opportunity right now for many people to find what they're attracted to, and remember, discern the things you merge with, and then to listen. All right. This is also, it's about our ability to listen. It's about our ability to speak and to listen. That being said, let's shift for a moment. The moon is our receptive. It's our receptive self, and our ability to take in and to feel through our senses in the moment. The moon is in Gemini, and the moon is very much a part of alchemy. The moon is the deep feminine that's alchemized. She is the object of alchemy. And so she is showing us in Gemini to be receptive and to learn how to really listen and take in what you're hearing, without having that immediate reactionary impulse to let the lower emotional body start to get all like upset and panicked and fearful. And I know some of these things that we're discussing right now are horrific. They're horrific, and my work deals a lot with healing human sexuality, and so I've been working with the topics that are really being shown right now for a long time, and looking at the injustices that are happening with children in such a big way. And so this is indeed some of the things that have been coming out for the past few years now, and will continue to come out. Just this epidemic of pedophilia and many things also that surround that. So it's very serious, and we have to understand it from a place that is connected to the heart and connected to reason and wisdom. If we want to make a difference, we have to have both feelings and compassion along with reason. And that was also something that came in as I was writing about spiritual protection in the aura. When reason and love marry each other, we have the divine couple that can truly see. And that's when our interlocking, the auric field is made up of the lower triangle and then the upper triangle. And when they merge together, we have the what is known by many as the symbol of the Star of David, but it creates the Merkaba field in our aura. And there's different levels of that happening, but that is the blending of our masculine and feminine, our inner soul and spirit, before we take part in the greater alchemy to merge with the greater light. So it's in order to have sovereignty in our own container, we have to discern those things that we merge with. We have to listen. We have to feel. We have to use the power of Venus. We have to feel with the heart and understand what now? What is the creative act that's being called for by this information? What do I do with it? Instead of just taking it in and being so overwhelmed and upset about there's many different things. So we just had the elections. There's many different things happening in our world, and a lot is hidden. Instead of being upset about it, we have to understand where we fit in to that. Where do we fit into the puzzle? What is our note to sound? How can we contribute with positive mental focus? It's the key. Staying in positive mental focus allows us to be sovereign and to radiate and project rather than just soaking out. We have to have our male force. Our Mercury is the magician and represents the ability to project outward, the ability to send out and to work our own vision and cast our alchemy onto the screen of consciousness and create it. The screen is waiting to be for our inner projection to come out onto it, and one that makes sense, one that's thought out, one that's connected to our intuition and feeling. These are all powerful things to know. Discernment is huge. A long time ago, somebody taught me a quick mantra, so quick, and it's so powerful, and I think I want to say it on this video. In a situation when you need to know something, to just connect deeply within one breath and say, discernment, activate. Discernment, activate. Discernment, activate. And sometimes we say it in threes because the power of three is a manifesting power. So ask for discernment. Step back and ask for discernment, and then move that through your body and decide where it's meant to go. So information is key. This is what we're seeing on the world stage. There's a battle for information. We have to take back our information and have it be real. It's going to be a process, though, and so we have to remain calm and patient and act very in a way that's very guided. And so that it doesn't become, when we make a mess of things, we destroy things sometimes, and then we realize that we have to rebuild them. There's going to be some rebuilding for sure, but at the same time, to alchemize is to transmute and change something from being a tool that was used for destruction and negativity, and to disempower people, to a tool that can empower people. So that's the kind of thinking that can be really powerful. Now, this is just, as always, when I'm bringing some of my work through, and some of the things that are coming through my voice, it's only one voice. That's another thing, though, to say that when we look out into the world and we see this is about the power of the word. Gemini is Mercury. It's the power of our word. We have to use our word like it's gold. The color, in fact, of the magician, almost the whole card is gold. It's about knowing Our word is a creative power. When we just lash out at people, and when we just let our emotional body, the lower wound, the body of pain, just lash onto somebody, we don't hurt the person, we hurt ourselves. Ultimately, it comes back to us. It doesn't mean that there's not a place to be angry, there's not a place to speak our truth, but what we're talking about is the lower frequency that we see, the way people will lash out at each other on YouTube, on Facebook, on even in the media, in our newspapers, that we need to, if you want to have real power, value your words, because your words are your karma, your words are your power. The throat is ruled by Venus, and so we create what we speak always, and what we think, and what we feel, and what we desire. And so I'm going to go on for a few more minutes. Let me see. So this is about positive mental focus to create your own reality. It's about take reality and first of all, find your center in the reality. Go within your own field. I really recommend just being inspired by reading the Spiritual Protection in the Field if this interests you. The aura is our home. It's what we are. It's like I'm in this home. This is a physical representation of the energetic auric field, because your home is also your aura. It puts you a distance between you and allows you to have discernment. That's another thing. We are meant to have discernment, and we are meant to have boundaries before we merge with the whole. Hugely important to understand, especially when we're looking through a spiritual lens or a kind of new age lens, that everything is okay, everyone's okay. It's that idea that there doesn't need to be any boundaries. Everything is for everyone. Well, eventually it becomes, we move into that, but we have to understand first the boundary of our auric field. If our boundary is overtaken constantly, we aren't able to take place and give the gift we really have. So part of our lessons as souls is learning how to have discernment and learning what to interact with, learning when is it time to share, when is it time to not share, learning when is it time to speak, and when is it more powerful to be silent. Those are the things that help us establish boundaries. And we're not all meant to be at the same place at the same time. There might be some time where, and I work with so many different people and get to see this beautiful process of people going through many different stages. And even when I work with people, there's times when people can become very shut down and angry. And when you're doing a certain kind of work or holding a space and you're mentoring or coaching, you have to be able to hold space during that time and not have it bring you into an emotional place that reacts. Because when we just react from our ego, we break ties and we break relationships that may still have a lot of love in them. But we have to be able to do that with boundaries. And so if somebody says, I need a little space right now, or, what I'm calling for right now is just to take some time, we need to honor that, because we're all allowed to have that, especially when things are done with respect. But boundaries are a huge part of the lovers, and knowing that before we can have alchemy, we have to have boundaries. We have to create the alchemical container. If we don't have an alchemical container, we won't be able to do the alchemy. So we're building our field, making it really bright, really powerful, so that we can work the red and the white, so that we can do this alchemy. And it's exciting. So let me see if there's any other. Okay, so there's an air trine at the moon, and this is powerful because Mars, which is the tower, is in Aquarius at 25 degrees. Jupiter, I believe, I have a chart. Jupiter is in Libra. I think at 18, my screen went down, but I think it's at 18. And then the moon is in Gemini at 22. This is an air trine between the moon, Jupiter, and Mars. Well, Mars, the tower, is all about the divine light coming down and awakening us. And then we have the moon and the alchemy she holds, and Jupiter. And Jupiter is giving expansiveness to this. This is also an air trine. All right, so air in alchemy is, well, first of all, it's the heart, it's the breath of life, it's Aleph, it's the spiritual plane, and air is needed to perform alchemy. We have to have a breath. We have to have a heart. We have to be able to breathe it in. Air is on the pillar, is between fire and water, and so it's the great. It births the truth, and so the air trines taking place at the full moon, Gemini full moon, very alchemical. And the beginning of there's a new cycle coming for these things, because as we enter into solstice and the holidays and New Year's and 2017, forget it. It's a whole new, we're on a new playing field. We're still going to be seeing a lot of things play out, a lot of things that are hard and challenging, but there's also the momentum for love and joy. And so some of the people we see, we have to be careful about how much we latch into their consciousness. Like, let's say if there's somebody in the news that really angers you, or there's people going at it and one person is saying one person saying another thing, you believe this person. Be careful about taking it on. Look at it and understand if it's triggering you and making you really passionate and feel really like you're so angry or so mad, or you just hate what you're seeing. Ask discernment, activate how you can use that, rather than getting too wrapped up. When we travel in, we enter into the matrix of control, because when we get too bound to some of these messages, when we get too attached, we lose our power. And you'll see that your dreams will change, your auric field will change. We have to be able to be objective sometimes. It's great to be subjective, but being objective is key. It doesn't mean the heart is shut off, but it just means that you're giving yourself some space to be in your truth, your inner wisdom, in order to understand and make sense of what you see. And that can happen a lot if I've known people that have told me once they start watching certain videos, it can get really heavy, to over and over. And so take a break. Take a break. If you're a person who wants to really understand what's going on, give yourself space in between to process. It's important to process. That was one of the things I wrote about, that when we have constant stimulation from our devices, from our tech, from our social media. So we have to, these things all are emitting, there's emitting things in the ethers that we take in. We need to shut everything down and take quiet space. Go into nature. It's huge. It's huge. And enjoy the season. Enjoy the season. Try to find something about it that's beautiful for you. Even if you're a person who kind of poo-poos the holidays and thinks they're all in the music and all, find the joy in your heart. Celebrate like a child. Be a divine child, not the foolish child that has turned away from love, but the divine child that's ready to take that adventure and connect with the things that make you feel. The things that feel good, because then you can go out and you can be ready to take on what it is you're meant to take on. So we talked about sovereignty, the air trine, oh, yes. I wanted to talk about art, but just for a minute, because we're almost done. We're really coming to the end. Art is very powerful. And art is coming into this conversation we're seeing in the world. It's a big part of it, because we see that art can be used for the dark or it can be used for the light. Now, I'm saying this in a very neutral way, but art is powerful. And art can be used in a way that debases things and brings us down. The true art on the ascension path is the art that opens the ethers and that allows the divine light to pour in. It's the art that connects us with the higher wisdom of the divine archetypes. It's the art that tells the story of freedom and of liberation and of divine love. And so sometimes art looks at the plight of the human being and the hardness, the truth that we've been through as well. So there's great art that will depict great pain or great rage, and that is part of its function as well. And it's really to point us to our own inner art so that we become the canvas of our own art. But right now, one beautiful piece of art, one powerful piece of art that's real art, can fill a cathedral with light. One piece of art that has been brought through the higher consciousness has the power to vibrate this earth in a whole different way. And so the Lovers represents art as well, because it's of its connection with Venus. Understand that the creative imagination and what we create right now from a higher state of love, of pure mental focus, is powerful. Be creative and do the work that you've come to do. You might not be an artist, but use the power of the art of alchemy, because remember, temperance is art. It's also art. The Lovers are art. And we use the power of desire. We use the power of what we want to create art. So we transcend the lower lust and bring it into the higher desire for truth. And that is really what will bring our heart energy into this human state on a whole nother level. Remember, everything that we do is the intercourse of the Lovers. Everything we interact with, we're creating from that seed a fruit. And so I think that's everything for today. I thank you for joining me, and subscribe to the channel. If you are interested in receiving the notifications when the podcasts are taking place. But I just want to wish everyone a really, really beautiful beauty in this season. And even though there's a lot of suffering going on around us, use the power of the beauty and the light in your own home, in your own family. Realize that even though many of us have had difficulties at times with our parents, or difficulties with our loved ones or our partners or our children, now is the time to see the goodness and focus on the goodness and open your heart to love. I know one connection with somebody you love that's real and where there's appreciation and gratitude is all you need to reboot and regenerate and see what the world is really about, because that's where the divine writes the magic in the power of love. And so that being said, I want to wish you a happy solstice, winter solstice in the northern, summer solstice in the southern. And I might even do a video about that, but I will see you at the next, the new moon, the Capricorn new moon, which is another great moment in time as we enter into 2017. And so, signing out for today, and wishing you many blessings.